So let me give you a little bit, just drill down on Guyana. Let me give you the big why. Like, why is this happening, right? And let me see if I could unpack that a bit. First of all, you're starting to see analysis come out. You're starting to see commentary come out in both in the press and in among think tanks and other places here in the U.S. This has been escalating, I think, as Colonel Mills mentioned, since at least September. There's been tension forever, but specific military maneuvering on behalf of the Maduro regime on a week-to-week basis has been escalating since September 10th. And so we've been tracking this very closely. I could get more details on that in the Q&A, but nonetheless, this is not a bluff. This is not Maduro posturing. This is not Maduro just barking to try to gain attention, because you see some of that analysis and some of that commentary in the press and in among other different parts of the scholarly community. Most of the people that are making those commentary really don't have any clue of what's going on between Venezuela and Guyana because they've been following it as closely as others have. So the first is it's not a bluff. But why is this happening? Well, there's two things here. There's a regional dynamic and there's an international dynamic. On the international front, this is the fourth flank. All right. This is, after Ukraine, after Israel, and what's pending in Taiwan. This is the fourth flank of, proxy warfare, that's going to take place around the world to be able to shift the world into this new international order. There's a lot at stake here. It's not just the 11 billion barrels of oil that that Guyana discovered in 2015, but it is similar to these other conflicts that I just mentioned. There's territorial integrity issues. There's sovereignty issues. Frankly, there's democracy issues, all at stake into how this conflict is defined. If Maduro is able to develop his capabilities to the point that he can annex the Essequibo, or even more, because it's not just the Essequibo. That's the big part that you guys saw on the map with Colonel Mills, but Suriname is now making a claim on the southeastern part of Guyana, and eventually probably Brazil will make a claim for their lost territory. So this opens up a Pandora's box where basically Guyana ends up becoming just a strip of land along Georgetown, in the capital and on the coast. So this is the fourth flank. That's the international dimension. That's why this is happening at this precise moment. They could have made an action against Guyana last year, the year before, even 2 years prior. Or they could wait to after international arbitration, which is going to be next year. The reason this is happening at this precise moment, and what Colonel Mills alluded to, is because Maduro came back from Beijing to basically get marching orders to accelerate this conflict. So it's prepared for after the election in Taiwan. The October 7th attack on Israel on behalf of Iran, 2 days after that attack that Iran took, and I say Iran because Hamas is a proxy of Iran, that Iran took against Israel. 2 days after, they sent a cargo ship to Venezuela to begin to deliver additional repairment parts and armament for their naval forces. So this is pretty much part of a plan, a synchronized effort by this authoritarian alliance to push the world into World War III. Now that's the international dynamic. Let me jump really quick into the regional dynamic. Maduro's, the whole concept of the Bolivarian Revolution, which is what inspired the whole Chavismo and Hugo Chavez in back in the day, now Maduro as his successor, is what they call to reestablish Bolivar's territory, which was the Greater Colombia. The Greater Colombia was Simón Bolívar's conquest when he liberated Latin America from Spain, to capture certain territories along the bridge of between South and Central America moving into North. It really consists of 5 countries: Venezuela, Colombia, Ecuador, Panama, and Guyana. And if you extend that to parts of Brazil. So the whole Bolivarian Revolution that was designed by Hugo Chavez back in the 1980s, and that was eventually put into practice after the 1999 ascension to power by Hugo Chavez, and more specifically the redesigning of his armed forces in 2007, because they went from a conventional military, broken up by services, air, sea, land, Army, Navy, Air Force, to become a regional commands. They're called REDIs, or Regional Defense Integrated Defense Networks. That was established by 2007. When he couldn't get it pushed through a constitutional amendment, he did it just through executive order. The whole idea of that was to start to control territory, to be able to expand territory using organized crime. So the Bolivarian Revolution is about conquest. It's about recapturing this territory of the Greater Colombia. The first step is Guyana. If this goes successful for them, they will go after Ecuador, they will go after Panama, they will go after Colombia, and Colombia has already an element that's already well advanced on that. And then you're going to have other conflicts that brew throughout the entire hemisphere. Bolivia has the Aymara Nation. Nicaragua has the Sandinista Revolution. The Mexicans, they claim California down to Texas. So this is opening up Pandora's box in terms of reestablishing a conquest of territory that they believe was taken away from them. And if you juxtapose that with Taiwan, with Ukraine, it's the same argument repeating itself throughout the world. So that's the why. It's important to understand that this has always been in the cards. This has always been in the books. This is the grand strategy of the Bolivarian Revolution. And people that have paid attention to that know this. People that have not don't understand this, which is why you're going to see a lot of confusion in the international community. Let me jump into the how. This is not going to be a conventional conflict. There will be conventional aspects. There will be military forces, but they have not. The Bolivarian armed forces of Venezuela have not been training in conventional war. They've been training in asymmetric war for the last 20 years. Their military isn't a conventional force, anything to be really impressed by. As the Colonel Mills was mentioning, the maintenance, the echelons of maintenance of their equipment and their armament isn't up to snuff. I'll give you one. Well, nonetheless, just so you know, there have been military testing to be done for a potential incursion. A lot of that testing failed. A lot of it, the Maduro's equipment doesn't meet the operational readiness requirements to be able to move. But he doesn't just need that. Among the forces that I think Colonel Mills showed you, probably one of the most important is the Cyber Defense Battalion that Maduro has based out of a military base in Aragua, which engages in very aggressive, robust foreign disinformation. They're the ones that catalyzed the protests in Chile in 2019, the protests in Colombia in 2021. They're very robust at disinforming. That part of the information warfare has already begun. And so this is going to look like, I tend to use these as kind of analogous, and it doesn't mean it perfectly fits, but this is going to look a little bit more like Crimea than Ukraine, right? Separatist movements, indigenous movements that are going to be popped up inside Venezuela, high robust disinformation, sabotage, subversion. But the grand prize of this incursion is going to be in the water. Because the short-term objective is to essentially pull out U.S. companies that are trying to be U.S. companies that have concessions to the oil discoveries that Guyana has made since 2015. As you were mentioning, I think someone was mentioning earlier, China has concessions on some of that oil. So China has this excellent position, geostrategic, geopolitical positioning of being arson and firefighter, right? They're going to help Maduro and spark the conflict, and then they're going to work with Guyana to solve the conflict. And part of that is the concessions that they have to the oil. But instead of being a 49% shareholder on some of these concessions, they want to be 100% shareholder on these concessions. So this is part of that conflict, not the whole aspect of it. But one thing you all should know is among all the deficiencies and lack of competencies of Maduro's military, there is one thing that they have been training for at least about the last 5-6 years, which is asymmetric amphibious operations. That's where the Iranian drones come in. That's where the fast attack craft come in. That's where the precision guided munitions come in. And Maduro's, and I think they were mentioning submarines a second ago, Maduro's military has been training in deep sea operations, basically deep sea diving, for about the last 5-6 years with Russia, with Iran. In fact, when they participate in the Russian army games, they lose in every competition, the tanks, the artillery, but the only one that they consistently win is in deep sea diving and underwater demolitions. The Venezuelans win that competition year by year in the international army games hosted by Russia. And then the final, just to kind of wrap this up, I don't want to take too much time, and we got other speakers, like the what to do, and this will get me into Argentina a little bit. I know Frank asked me to talk about that. So this is a checkmate against the Venezuelan opposition. This is an ace in the sleeve on the international community. It's checkmate on the Venezuelan opposition because if you know anything about Venezuelans, they all believe that's their territory. Like this isn't a pro-Maduro, anti-Maduro thing. They've been indoctrinated to believe that was territory that was stolen from them. There was never just international arbitration. It was always influenced by foreign powers, particularly the UK. And I'm not going to argue that point, right? As I'm not a legal scholar. I mean, I know international arbitration hasn't gone on the side of Venezuela. And I also know Chavez, Chavez really didn't do anything about this for a long time. He always had this as a plan, but the previous presidents of Guyana were allies of Venezuela. And I'm talking about Granger and some of the other presidents that were there. They were kind of part of this socialist network in Latin America. So he had him as a vote in the OAS. He had him as an ally in South America. So he didn't really want to increase the tension and aggression. Now is not that case. But the Venezuelan opposition, which I have some very good friends, Maria Corina Machado is an excellent friend. I think she's probably the most formidable contender to Nicolas Maduro that we've ever seen. She's an authentic political figure that really has the heartbeat of the Venezuelan people. But even she will be difficult to be a strong ally in these type of conflicts because the Venezuelan people are going to support Maduro in this conquest. I mean, even if they don't support Maduro himself, they will support the idea that the Essequibo is theirs. In fact, in Venezuela, since you go to grade school, the map of Venezuela never concluded like this. It always had that annexed territory as a disputed region. And in fact, one thing that Chavez did is he changed the flag of Venezuela from 7 stars to 8 stars to include that part of the territory. That was the 8th star on the Venezuelan flag. So it's a checkmate against the opposition because there's not much the opposition can do. Juan Guaido made a terrible mistake. The first thing that he did when they went to negotiate in Mexico, this is a couple years ago, but this was during the Guaido-Maduro tension, and they were negotiating, trying to solution to try to go to elections. The first thing they signed, the first document that they signed with Maduro was an agreement that they both believe that the Essequibo belongs to Venezuela. So Maduro got that signature from Juan Guaido as the interim president at the time, recognized by almost 60 countries in the world, and pretty much he walked away from the negotiation. Because that's what he wanted. That's what he needed because he was working on this roadmap. And I say it's an ace in the sleeve with the international community because the window of action is now. Yeah, you don't have a time where the United States is probably weaker than it's ever been in modern history. A government, a president, an administration that's really just, if they're not catalyzing these kind of things, they're just fumbling any type of responses towards them. We've seen that in Ukraine. We're currently seeing it in Israel. So the window of opportunity to be able to do this with minimal cost and minimal risk is now. They're looking at it as an ace in the sleeve because it's going to push the international community to respond in ways that they're not prepared to respond and in ways that they probably don't even know how to. Now that leads me to my concluding point, which is what do we do? Now, obviously we can talk all about what we need to do here in America to basically recover this country so we can be able to be in a position to be much more aggressive against enemies of freedom around the world. But, I think it was Admiral Stavridis, who was once commander of Southern Command. Also, he was the Supreme Allied Commander of NATO, who once said, to beat a network, you have to build a network. And I think we need a network. The United States is not going to be able to solve all these problems, even if, we have a new change of administration in 2025, by itself. One of the key puzzles in my kind of mental roadmap to be able to recover freedom around the world, one of the first key pieces was Argentina. If Javier Milei had not won the presidency of Argentina, I would be much more pessimistic of the way the world is going to shape out in the next 10 to 15 years. But the fact that Javier Milei was able to defy all odds, because a year ago he was not even a serious contender to be the president of Argentina, but to defy all odds and to be able to become the current president of Argentina, inaugurated as of this Sunday, shows us that there is a chance to turn the tide. I'm sorry, against the autocratic forces. I think all attention needs to be on helping the Argentine government be successful in its first 100 days and in its first year. He's going to have a very difficult time because he's not going to have a lot of international allies. There were very few presidents, heads of state, that went to inauguration, but there was a lot of political figures that may be future presidents that were present in his inauguration. So I think we need to support Javier Milei. He has an excellent national security team led under Minister Patricia Bullrich, who I've known personally for many years, Defense Minister Luis Petri, who I've also known for many years. And I think that this is the first major development in order to be able to have a recovery of the Western Hemisphere. The next one, obviously, is the United States in 2024.
Ahora sí. Vamos a recuperar los derechos de Venezuela históricos de la Guayana Essequibo.
President Maduro is reckless in that statement. He shows that he's an outlaw.